Oh, hi there, guys. So today, Labour are pressing ahead with their welfare reform bill. They're going to make it harder for people to claim PIP, and they're going to change some of the eligibility rules around universal credit. Now, before I get into it, I'd be really grateful if you could subscribe for daily analysis on politics and the economy, and like the video if you find what I talk about interesting at all. So thanks a lot. So the Labour hierarchy made a few concessions to their backbench MPs last week, but the latest impact assessment still shows that around 150,000 people are going to be pushed into poverty as a result of this policy. And the concessions that they have made somehow make this bill even worse. So now, with the concessions that they've made, we're looking at a two-tier benefit system where existing claimants are going to continue to get PIP on the current terms, whereas new claimants will be subject to much more stringent criteria. It is absolutely a staggering level of incompetence to have a bill this bad and then in trying to make it better, somehow make it even worse. Now, there is still an outside chance that enough Labour MPs could vote against this bill and sink it today. But regardless of the outcome, I think by pressing ahead with this bill, Labour have, in my opinion, committed the worst unforced error of any Labour government since the Iraq War. Essentially, this goes to the heart of what a government stands for, and it doesn't make sense by any metric at all. So firstly, in terms of the politics of it, this is Labour attacking their own base. People vote Labour for many reasons, but often because they want to see an improvement to public services, because they want to see the least well off and the most vulnerable protected, and often because they realise that Labour are a natural break from the Tories. Generally speaking, people see the Tories as most focused on the economy and business, or at least they did once upon a time. But to do this, to piss off your base so early in a parliament, to squander all of the goodwill that might have existed at the start of this government, is just woeful politics. And this, in conjunction with the winter fuel debacle, it also makes Reeves, Starmer, Kendall, McSweeney, all those other people at the top of the Labour Party, look incredibly weak for very little return. They've burnt through a huge amount of political capital for almost no benefit, really, because this is a universally hated policy. So in addition to the politics, it also doesn't even make sense on an economic or a practical basis. Now, we know from the austerity years that when people don't have their needs met in the short term, those same people are then going to present to the NHS and other acute services with much more dire and much more expensive needs at a later date. So policies like this, they're a false economy, and those extra people that they push into poverty as a result of this policy, they're going to be the same people who are presenting at A&E in 3 or 4 years' time, needing urgent and expensive care. And it also raises a really small amount of money for the Treasury, which is their main rationale for the entire policy. So the numbers that they're talking about are so small that it's basically a rounding error in terms of overall government spending. So for context, they think it's going to raise about £3 billion with these concessions that they've made. £3 billion is what the UK has committed in support of Ukraine every year up until 2030. I think their calculation is they're going to be saving money over the long term by restricting eligibility in the future because, it's projected that we're going to be much sicker as a nation. But as I said a minute ago, the extra spending that they're going to need to cover the extra costs in the NHS and other acute services is going to swallow that up anyway. So the economics of it just doesn't make any sense. And then finally, and obviously most importantly, there's the human side of all this. So vulnerable and sick people, disabled people who are already in receipt of PIP, they're extremely worried about this. And the level of anxiety it's provoked has been, it's been huge, frankly. We know, again, from the austerity years under the Tories, this policy is going to kill people, whether through the punitive assessment process, whether through the appeals process, or whether through simply not having their needs met when they're at a vulnerable point in their lives. It's going to kill people. In summary, this is an absolutely disastrous policy. Starmer, Reeves and all the Labour MPs that vote for this today, they're going to be punished as a result of this. Not today, not tomorrow, but at next year's local elections and then again at the next general election, they're going to get hammered for this. Sadly, that's not going to mean much to those people who have to suffer as a result of this policy. Labour promised us change, and they didn't tell us that it was going to be change for the worse. So anyway, thanks a lot, guys. Catch up with you next time.